Hi, and welcome to the Origsburg Area Free Public Library. We're in the process of having our summer reading program. This is the second week, and we're doing themes of myths, folktales, and fairy tales. Fairy tales are pretend stories that involve magic, magical places, and magical creatures. But before we get to my story, I'd like to do a finger play with you about 5 little fairies. 5 little fairies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 little fairies sitting by the pond. One fell in and lost their wand. Mama called the wizard, and the wizard did respond, no more fairies sitting by the pond. 4 little fairies sitting by the pond. One fell in and lost their wand. Mama called the wizard, and the wizard did respond, no more fairies sitting by the pond. 3 little fairies sitting by the pond. One fell in and lost their wand. Mama called the wizard, and the wizard did respond, no more fairies sitting by the pond. 2 little fairies sitting by the pond. One fell in and lost their wand. Mama called the wizard, and the wizard did respond, no more fairies sitting by the pond. 1 little fairy sitting by the pond. He fell in and lost his wand. Mama called the wizard, and the wizard did respond, no more fairies sitting by the pond. 5 little fairies have a special bond. The wizard's lesson had finally dawned, not to lose their magic wand. And that is the 5 little fairies finger play. The fairy tale I'm going to read is an old one. It's called Little Red Riding Hood. And there's the wolf right there. The book was retold by Lynn Calder because it is an old story, and it's illustrated, or the pictures are drawn by Terry Super. And like many fairy tales, this one starts with, once upon a time there lived a little girl who had a beautiful red cloak with a hood. The girl wore it every day, and that is why she was called Little Red Riding Hood. One day, Little Red Riding Hood's mother said, your grandmother is not feeling well. I want you to take these honey cakes to her. Now remember, do not stop to speak with anyone, and do not leave the path. I will remember, said Little Red Riding Hood. And there are the honey cakes in the basket. Little Red Riding Hood set out for her grandma's house. Soon a wolf came along and spoke to her. Where are you off to so early? The wolf asked. And Little Red Riding Hood forgot what her mother had told her, and she answered, I'm taking these honey cakes to my grandmother. She's not feeling well. I'm sorry to hear that, said the wolf, but the wolf was really not sorry at all. Where does your grandmother live? Asked the wolf. Grandmother lives in the cottage past the windmill, said Little Red Riding Hood. I see, said the wolf. Why don't you pick a bouquet for your grandmother? He suggested, pointing to some wildflowers. I'm not supposed to leave the path, answered Little Red Riding Hood, but I am sure grandmother would like some pretty flowers. So Little Red Riding Hood left the path to pick some flowers. And there goes the wolf. Off he goes. The wolf hurried along to grandmother's cottage. Who is there? Asked grandmother, hearing a noise at the gate. It is Little Red Riding Hood, said Wolf in a tiny voice. Lift the latch and come in, said grandmother. The wolf went in and ate grandmother up. 1, 2, 3. Then he put on grandmother's nightgown and nightcap and climbed into her bed. When Little Red Riding Hood reached grandmother's cottage, she was surprised to find that the gate was open. And when she walked right in, she knew something was not right. Grandmother, what big ears you have, said Little Red Riding Hood. The better to hear you with, my dear. What big eyes you had, said Little Red Riding Hood. The better to see you with, my dear. And what big teeth you have, said Little Red Riding Hood. The better to eat you with, my dear. Then the wolf jumped out of bed and ate up Little Red Riding Hood. 1, 2, 3. All at once the wolf grew sleepy and climbed back into bed for a nap. He was snoring loudly when a hunter passed by the cottage and heard him. The hunter went inside and saw the wolf. I've got you at last, you wicked wolf, the hunter said, and he killed the wolf. 1, 2, 3. hunter saw the wolf look very fat, so he carefully cut open the wolf. Snip, snip, out popped Little Red Riding Hood. Snip, snip, out popped Grandmother, and they hugged each other tightly. They were saved. After dragging the wolf outside, the hunter sat with Grandmother and Little Red Riding Hood, and the three of them feasted on honey cakes. Soon Grandmother was feeling better. We won't ever have to worry about that wicked wolf again, she said. Little Red Riding Hood set out for home. As she hurried along, she said over and over and over again, I will never leave the path again when Mother tells me not to. I will never leave the path again when Mother tells me not to. I promise. She never did, and she lived happily ever after. And that is the story of Little Red Riding Hood. Don't forget, we have a craft for you to do. You can come in and get our Red Riding Hood craft.